Time now to take a look through the international newspapers with Elena Casas. Hello again, Elena. Starting in Russia, what are the papers making then of Putin's re-election?
Well, it's Putin's crying last night that the Moscow Times has chosen to headline on. They've got Tearful Putin as a headline. But on the front page, they've got an interesting article collecting witness statements from observers of the election. And now, if they're all to be believed, then United Russia has gone beyond the more conventional means of trying to fix an election and gone for some rather creative tactics, at least according to some of their observers. They've reported not only ballot box stuffing and people voting in the names of the dead, but also United Russia activists bussing groups of voters around to get them to vote as many as half a dozen times each. So they've got some quite extraordinary reports of violations, extraordinary in terms really of their this sort of defiance of United Russia really in the face of these observers. They seem to be quite unconcerned about being spotted doing these things, at least according to the Moscow Times. They've also got an interesting analysis piece on that front page. Headline is Putin faces a no-win situation. Basically, they say that while this wave of opposition is going to continue to grow and grow as not only Russia's middle class, but whole swathes of society find their voice and decide they want to speak out against the government, what's going to happen next for Putin? Well, they reckon he's boxed himself into a corner because he can't actually move in a reforming direction, even if he wanted to offer some measures to placate those opposition activists, because if he does, he would not only upset his core support, those people who've profited from his regime and therefore don't want to see any reform, and also those who did vote for him, because it would make him look weak if he were to change course and offer any reform, they say. And his main selling point to voters is always meant to be how strong he is and what stability he can offer Russia. So really, he can't kind of escape from this box. They reckon he's just going to have to take a more authoritarian course, and that's only bound to inflame the opposition further. They've also taken an interesting look at that candidate Mikhail Prokhorov, the opposition candidate who was widely denounced in the Russian press as being sort of set up by Putin to try and attract opposition votes. They say that quite surprisingly, he said yesterday that he won't be sitting in a Putin cabinet and he hopes to become an opposition figurehead. So they say in their piece that maybe he wasn't set up by Putin after all, or maybe Putin's strategy is just very clever.
What about coverage of that election outside Russia?
Well, he's on this Guardian front page. Look, we have won, glory to Russia. And a lot of the foreign press has been saying that maybe Putin has reached the end of an era, that he's going to have to reform now. But on the Guardian front page, their correspondent Luke Harding, who actually was famously expelled from Russia last year, says there's no reason to think that he won't still be in power in another 6 years when the next election comes around. He says he calls this election Putin's Brezhnev moment, saying it goes from when he was just an elected politician to being a kind of lifetime leader now that he's won this re-election again. He says it would be really presumptuous of us to start to think that this opposition movement might get rid of him anytime soon.
Now, moving on, what about the press reaction to Barack Obama's speech to the APEC meeting yesterday?
Never before has a small country dictated so much to a superpower as Israel is now doing to the US. That's what Haaretz says in an editorial today. But also they say that welcome, that may be being outstayed. They say that while Barack Obama is afraid to do anything that might upset Israel and thus America's Jewish lobby during an election period, that doesn't mean that once he's re-elected, that if Israel continues to make warmongering moves, he's going to be so indulgent. Foreign policy, though, reports in an article today that actually Netanyahu isn't going to bomb Iran, according to them, and that these kind of warmongering moves are only saber-wielding, deciding to kind of show their power in the region. But really, Netanyahu doesn't need this electorally. He's going quite sure of a new re-election. He doesn't need to worry too much about placating the right wing of his own party. And as a result, that he won't really attack Iran. They say it's all for show.
And we're going to end off with an unusual crime committed in Dublin.
Yeah, and Christchurch Cathedral in Dublin was robbed on Saturday, but not by thieves who had any interest in the gold chalices and the gold candlesticks. They stole the 1,000-year-old preserved heart of St Laurence O'Toole, Dublin's patron saint. Apparently, according to the Huffington Post, this is a series of robberies of medieval relics from churches that's happened in Ireland, but no one's quite sure what anyone might be stealing them for.
A mystery indeed. All right, thank you very much, Elena, for running us through the international newspapers.